Hey guys, welcome back, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the top 20 edge rushers in the 2025 NFL Draft. This is one of the most loaded position groups in the entire class, and there are so many guys that I think are going to be big time contributors at the NFL level. Every single one of these top 20 players do have a grade that is at least in the third round, and I think you could see upwards of 22 edge rushers taken in the top 100, which I know sounds completely absurd, but I do want to talk about a couple of guys that did just miss the list. Savion Jones out of LSU is the guy that just missed it, as well as Tyler Barron and Elijah Roberts. I wanted to find ways to include them. Unfortunately, they just missed the cut, but we're going to be going over my top 20 in today's video. If you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It helps me out, lets me know you guys are enjoying the content. Also, comment down below, what's your top 20? Which edge rushers do you think I'm too high on? Which edge rushers do you think I'm too low on? And check out my Patreon page, which will be linked down in the description below, where you can find my scouting reports, stats, and all of the updated combine and pro day numbers for each and every one of the edge rushers that I have studied in this draft class. I've looked at 52 different edge rushers for this draft, so this is a really exciting position. I'm excited to get into it. Let's kick this off with my number 20 player, and that is going to be Ole Miss edge rusher Jared Ivey. Ivey's an interesting one. It really depends on if you categorize the 3-4 defensive end as an interior defensive line position or an edge rusher position. I kind of interchange them. Ivey I have listed as an edge. That's where he took a lot of his snaps this past season for Ole Miss. And this is a really freakish athlete. He's 6'5", 283 pounds, had a pretty solid showcase at the NFL Senior Bowl. Started his collegiate career at Georgia Tech, where he played for 2 seasons, has been at Ole Miss since 2022. And this is a guy with just phenomenal traits. 6'5", 283, as we mentioned, 33 3/4 inch arms with an 81 3/8 inch wingspan. He's got active hands and one of the strongest motors of any edge rusher in this draft class. He's a fantastic run defender who I think has really good upper body strength. He showed the ability to consistently push the pocket. And I think he brings you versatility. He played a lot of that 4-3 edge for Ole Miss. His skill set allows him to kick inside and play that 3-4 defensive end. And I think he could do it at a high level. I think he is a really solid, versatile defensive lineman. I think the biggest concerns you are going to have with him are his athletic abilities. He is big and he's got long arms, but he's pretty slow off the ball. He does not move very quickly. He's not explosive really in any ways, and I think his closing speed can be really suspect. As a pass rusher, he has some areas that I think need some improvement. I think his hands can be a little bit stiff from time to time. Had a 14.9% pass rush win rate with 8 sacks this past season, but I love what he does in the run game. Only a 6.3% missed tackle rate this past season, had over 20 run stops. This is a guy that I think will be a contributor on the interior of the defensive line at that 3-4 defensive end spot. Reminded me a little bit of Darius Robinson from last year, only on a lesser scale. My comparison for him is Danico Autry. I think he's got a lot of those similar traits. He brings good versatility, and I think he's going to be a contributor. I would take him inside the top 100. I think a team like Seattle would make a lot of sense. A team like the Eagles, I think, would love him. So I'm a fan of Jared Ivey, and he's going to kick off this list at number 20. At number 19, I've got Oregon's Jordan Burch. Burch was a player that I absolutely loved when I watched him last season, and his stock did drop a little bit for me, but I think this guy is fantastic, and he is my guy in this draft class. He's another guy that I think brings phenomenal versatility to the defensive line. 6'4", 279 pounds, 33-inch arms, but at 279, he ran a 4.67, which is a phenomenal time for his position. Another guy that really great run defender, only a 4% missed tackle rate this past season for Oregon, 10 sacks, a 15.7% pass rush win rate, 32 pressures on the season. He's another guy that's extremely versatile. Oregon played him a lot on the interior. He's taken snaps off the edge. He can play a little bit of anywhere along the defensive line. He was listed on Oregon's official depth chart at around 280 pounds. So this is a guy that I think can kick inside and be a contributor there for you. He's a better athlete overall, though, than Jared Ivey. I think he's way quicker to the ball. I think while he's not the most explosive player, he has some big-time plays. I think as a run defender, though, he's just phenomenal. The Oregon State game back in 2023 is some of the best tape you're going to watch on any edge rusher in this class. He was everywhere in that game. He showcased some active hands, the ability to split defenders, get into the backfield. He knows how to win with power. He's got a very strong bull rush, which I absolutely love to see. He does need to work on his hands. Finesse moves can be a bit inconsistent for him. I do think it's going to have to improve. And I do think he's got shorter arms for the position. That has held him back. Just 33-inch arms. It's not the worst in the world. Gap discipline as well, I think, can be a concern for him. Another guy, though, I think he could play 4-3 defensive end. I think he could play 3-4 defensive end. He's a really solid prospect, in my opinion, and I don't think he's getting a lot of talk in this edge rusher group. My comparison for him is Carl Brooks of the Green Bay Packers, another guy that had really good traits. Production was there, great run defender. Brooks has been a solid contributor for Green Bay on their defensive line. I think Birch can have a very similar type of career. I'm a big fan of him. There's not much of a gap between Jordan Birch and the next 2 or 3 guys on this class. So this is a great class. Birch comes in at number 19. At number 18, we're going to go with Ashton Gelati out of Louisville. He's a really tough one for me because I could see you having him in the top 15. I could see you having him outside of your top 20. I think he's a very polarizing prospect because he is pretty up and down, but you can't deny the production he has had the last 2 seasons for Louisville. A 20.9% pass rush win rate, 57 pressures this past season, which is coming off a season last year where I believe he was top 5 in all the FBS in pressures. This is a guy that is really productive and has put up phenomenal numbers over the past couple of seasons for Louisville. A good run defender as well, 23 run stops. I really like his tape. I think he is a player that shows versatility. He's 6'2", 264. Given his size, he is probably going to be a 4-3 edge rusher. His burst, really impressive. I think his first step off the line of scrimmage is good. You worry about the explosiveness numbers, though. He only had a 26.5-inch vertical at the combine. Not ideal. He's a really strong pass rusher, though. Very powerful, plays low to the ground, and he's able to generate that power from his lower body and just barrel over offensive linemen. I love his technique. I love his stance. I think he's got really good traits there. But it's when you start to look at some of the athletic upside with him, he doesn't have a ton of pass rush moves that he breaks out. His bend, I think, is really lackluster. He's really stiff in his lower half. That concerns me. And I think his ability to shed blockers is incredibly inconsistent. This is a guy that I would take probably after the other two. He probably will get drafted a little bit after Birch and Ivey because he's not the most athletic player in the world. He also has short arms for the position, 31 7/8-inch arms, 8.5-inch hands. His measurables just aren't great, but the production has been phenomenal. I love his power profile, and I think he can be a contributor in the run game. My comparison for him is John Franklin Myers of the Denver Broncos, a guy that can play a little bit of everywhere along the defensive line. Maybe not the most athletic or the longest player in the world, but I think he brings some good traits to the NFL level. I think he probably goes in the 3rd to 4th round, but I do like his tape and think he can be a solid contributor. Just want to see him be a little bit more loose and would like to see him be a little bit more athletic, which holds him down in this class. At number 17, I know I'm going to lose some people here. There are a couple of on here that I'm just lower than on the consensus, and one of those guys is JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. 3 years of tape I've watched on JT, and I really want to get the hype. I do. I want to like this player more than I do. And every time I watch him, I come away less impressed than I was the previous time. Goes back to that 2022 game, I believe, against Penn State, where he goes bananas in that game. You have high expectations that he could be a top player in the 2023. I believe it was 2023 he had that game. Either way, he comes into the 2023 season, high expectations, underperforms, comes back to school for another year, and he puts up a really, really good season for Ohio State. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. 39 run stops this past season, which is fantastic. 51 pressures, 15 sacks. The numbers look pretty good. Just the raw stats, you're like, okay, maybe he's figuring some stuff out. When I watch the tape on JT Tuimoloau, there are still the same inconsistencies that I have seen since the beginning of his collegiate career that he just has not improved upon. Another guy that has great size. He's 6'4", 265, phenomenal upper body strength. He knows how to utilize his long arms to ward off defenders. Great body control. I think he's really disciplined. He never seems to be off balance. He showcased the ability to drop back into coverage. I think the area to me where I think Tuimoloau gets the edge, he is maybe the best run defender in this draft class, you could argue. He is fantastic. The Indiana game, he popped off time and time and time again in the backfield, blowing up plays. I love to see that. The issue is consistency. He has some really high highs where he just looks like one of the most dominant players on the field. But more often than not, it felt like a lot of the pressures that he got this past season came off of open looks or when they would bring blitzes and he was uncovered. He only had a 12.4% pass rush win rate. It's not amazing at the college level. I also don't think he's got a lot of finesse moves that he can break out. He'll occasionally showcase a spin move, but he's really reliant on his bull rush, and if that doesn't win, I think he is flushed out of the play. He struggled against more powerful offensive linemen at times because he is a powerful player. If power gets matched with power, he has some struggles there. And I think the other area I do worry about, his athleticism really underwhelmed me this past season. I really liked his burst coming into the year. This season for Ohio State, he felt slower than he ever felt. He didn't feel super explosive, wasn't generating speed to power at the same efficiency that he had in previous years. And it just leaves you with a lot of questions about what he is at the NFL level. Do I think he's going to be a contributor? Absolutely. I think he's going to be a fantastic run defender. Maybe you can develop him into a pass rush archetype. But right now, I have way more questions about JT than I have answers. And that concerns me about his ceiling. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I think a lot of these guys will be contributors. Tuimoloau, I just don't see the hype on him being in the top 10, being in the top 12. He's just outside my top 15, and I've got him at number 17 in this class. At number 16, I've got Josiah Stewart from Michigan, a guy that really popped off this season for me. A really great story in college football. A guy that started his college career at Coastal Carolina in 2021, played there for 2 seasons. He's been at Michigan for the last 2 years. And he has been really productive for the Wolverines. Excellent athlete, one of the best pure athletes in the draft class with remarkable speed to get into the backfield. I think he is one of the fastest edge rushers in the backfield. It seems like he can get in the backfield at the blink of an eye. He's so quick to the football, really smart, really reactive, great instincts. His numbers were out of this world this past season for Michigan. 37 pressures, 9 sacks, 27.3 pass rush win rate, which is the highest of any of the edge rushers that we will be talking about in today's video. He's fantastic as just a speed rusher because he can get around offensive linemen. He's just super quick. He shows some coverage versatility. I think he's a hard hitter that's got phenomenal bend. As an athlete and a multiple player, you'll love him. But immediately worry about the size that he has. He's 6 foot, 248 pounds, 32 3/4 inch arms. Not the best frame in the entire world. So you do worry about that. I also think he struggles to disengage with blockers. If an offensive lineman is able to get his hands on Stewart, he doesn't have a lot of finesse moves at this point in time that he can consistently pull out of his back pocket and win. That worries me a little bit about what he's going to develop at the next level. He's also inconsistent as a run defender. He hits hard, but he had an 18.2% missed tackle rate this past season. That's a little bit high for my liking. If you're missing 1 out of 5 tackles, I don't love it. I also think he has some issues with balance. This is a guy that plays so fast. He's so frantic. sometimes he ends up on the ground, and he's going to have to improve upon that at the next level. There's a lot to like about his game and what his upside is as a speed rusher, but right now I don't see him being anything more than a designated pass rush type because he hasn't really developed some of the upside as a run defender or anything of that nature. My comparison for him is Arnold Ebiketie, a guy that was a little bit undersized, really athletic, hasn't fully developed in Atlanta yet, but I think the skill sets there are very similar. I think Stewart's going to be a good player at the NFL level. At number 15, we've got Landon Jackson from Arkansas. This is another one of the players that I feel like I'm just a little bit lower on than the consensus, and I'm not really sure what I'm missing on this player because there's a lot that I like about him. 6'5", 273 pounds, 10-inch hands, 82 and 3/4 inch wingspan, ran a 4.68, 40.5-inch vertical, a 10'9" broad jump. So when you just look at those testing numbers, phenomenal. 33 run stops this past season with 35 pressures, 7 sacks on the year. He's an interesting one, though, because I love his size, his length that he brings to the table, and he's just fantastic in terms of his upper body strength. He just had the ability to push the pocket, make life difficult on the quarterback, and he brought versatility. He took snaps all over the defensive line for the Razorbacks, which I really liked. And I think he plays with a relentless motor. This is a guy that is in consistent pursuit of the quarterback at all times. He does not know how to turn it off. And I love that type of mentality from my edge rushers. He just wants to get in the backfield and wreak havoc. Good run defender. I think he's got really good bend as well. But I didn't really feel like he was a consistent pass rusher. As a pass rusher, he only had 7 sacks and an 11.4 pass rush win rate this past season. That's just pretty low for me. I want to see a guy that's considered to be a top 60 pick be able to create pressure more than 11% of the time. That does concern me about what he's going to be at the next level. On top of that, he plays high, and this is a guy that is really powerful. And when you're playing high, you're not able to consistently generate power. He doesn't really showcase that. I also didn't love his athleticism, and I know that sounds crazy, but on tape, he's just not a super incredible athlete. He's okay, but I wouldn't say he is the type of athlete that he tested as a combine. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He doesn't close super quickly, and it worries me about his overall ceiling. I still have a 2nd to 3rd round grade on Landon Jackson. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. However, I do have a few more concerns that I think a lot of people are bringing up, and I think he's going to end up being a bit more of a project as a pass rusher than people want to admit. So I've got him at number 15, just cracked in the top 15, but I still think he's a fantastic player. At number 14, a player that I think is starting to become really underrated in this draft class, that's going to be Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. The other Ohio State edge rusher, Captain Jack, had a phenomenal season for Ohio State. And look, I get the concerns people have with Jack Sawyer. I do. But the numbers speak for themselves. 64 pressures, 10 sacks, 17.7% pass rush win rate this past season, 3 forced fumbles, 28 run stops on the season. I mean, this is a guy that I really like. He's a tall player, 6'4", 260, long arms for the position. I mean, he had 31 and 3/4 inch arms. I'm curious about that because that's what he measured in at. That's fine. I'm not worried about his length, though. His length seemed to be fine at the college level, so I just want to get that out of the way. He's just really quick off the line of scrimmage. He's got a great first step. He's a strong run defender, and that's the best word I can use to describe Jack Sawyer. He's just a strong player, powerful, knows how to drop into coverage, high motor, first guy in, last guy to leave the building. I'm kidding. But he does play with a high motor, and he's just in constant pursuit of the quarterback. With that said, hands are an issue for him. He is a little bit stiff in his lower half. His bend is not incredible. He's going to have to work on winning with more finesse. He's gotten away with it at the college level, and he shows flashes of it. It's really inconsistent at times, but I think it's in there for him. I think he is going to be a high floor type of player, maybe not the highest ceiling in the world. I think Sam Hubbard is my comparison for him. I think he's a good number 2 edge rusher, but he can defend the run, and I think he brings you some juice as a number 2 rusher. Do I ever think he's going to be this elite number 1 guy? Probably not, but I do love his traits. I think he's going to be a solid player, and I've got him at number 14. At number 13, I'm going to get some hate for this one. I already know it, and it is what it is. I've got Braden Swinson at number 13. Now, this is by no means me saying I don't like Braden Swinson, because I actually really like Braden Swinson, but I think there's a little bit more inconsistencies in his game than people want to admit. For one thing, he's 6'3", 255. I think he could get a little bit stronger. Play strength was a big concern for him. He felt overpowered, looked out of control, and was pushed off the ball way more often than is ideal for a player that people think could sneak into the first round. I just don't see that for him as a ceiling. As a run defender, I just don't really like what he brings to the table. He had 31 run stops, 15% missed tackle rate this past year. He just overextended a lot in the run game, missed his assignment. I didn't love that. But when you look at the positives, I mean, excellent bend, really, really good athlete, just moves so well, showcases a number of pass rush moves, excellent hands, plays with a high motor. It's there for him. This class is so good. Braden Swinson would have been a top 5 to 6 edge rusher in last year's class. I have him at 13, and the gap between 13 and 10 is probably about that big. You could put him in any order you want. He could be at number 10 for you. I push back on the narrative that he's a top 5 edge rusher in the class, like some people are going to try and say, because he's not that. There are still inconsistencies with him. He does struggle against power. He does need to work on his power profile and be more consistent against the run. But the upside with him is phenomenal. He's still young and reminds me a little bit of Harold Landry at his peak. I'm a big fan of Swinson, and this is not a knock on Braden Swinson. I think he's going to be a good player. I just favor a couple of other guys that I think probably have higher ceilings. He has a high floor with a high ceiling. I like some of the ceilings of other guys. I've got him at number 13. At number 12, we have Kyle Kennard, and by the end of this, when I do my final top 100, I think I probably might have Swinson ahead of Kennard. Kennard, though, I feel like is becoming undervalued in this draft class. He's a really solid overall player. There's just so much that he does well for the position, but the concern that you're going to have is the athleticism, because he's not the most athletic guy in the world. Ran a 4.73 at the combine. It's not amazing. Does need to work on his run defense. I think that could also improve. Had a 15.4% missed tackle rate, a little bit high to my liking. Him and Swinson are neck and neck, but the reason I favor Kennard, I just like what he brings as a pass rusher a little bit more. Really good length for the position, fantastic bend, and another guy that I felt like could win in a variety of ways. He can win with power. He can win with finesse. Excellent hands. His swing move and spin was absolutely phenomenal. Quick first step off the line of scrimmage. I think he's also a little bit more versatile. I think you can play him attached to the line of scrimmage while I worry about that with Swinson. Kennard brings a little bit more power to the table, and power rushers, they translate. Now, with that said, he does have to work on the penalties. He kind of cost him in the LSU game. He's out of control at times, needs to play a little bit more disciplined, but there's a lot there with him. The traits are there. Yes, he's not the most athletic or the most explosive guy in the world, but when you can make up for it with finesse and active hands, you're feeling really confident about what you have as an edge rusher. So I've got him at number 12. Like I said, the gap between Braden Swinson and Kyle Kennard on my big board is, I think, one spot. Let me pull this up. I have, where is he? I currently have Kyle Kennard as my number 60 overall prospect, and I have Braden Swinson as my number 61 overall prospect. At my number 59 overall prospect is my number 11 edge rusher, and that's Oluwafemi Oladejo. I know this is insane to a lot of people. I love this guy. He is one of my favorite players to watch in this draft class, and he does so many different things well. Phenomenal story, a guy that was an inside linebacker last season for UCLA. They convert him to edge rusher this past season. He finishes the year with 7 sacks, 33 pressures, 10.6 pass rush win rate, which is the lowest of the guys that we've mentioned. But he is playing his first season as an edge rusher. Fantastic run defender, 29 run stops, only a 10.5% missed tackle rate. Really good power as a rusher. Quick first step off the line of scrimmage. He knows how to convert speed to power at a really high rate. His versatility is phenomenal. He can play that outside linebacker role. He has that coverage potential where he can drop back and cover running backs or tight ends. He has phenomenal hands. I mean, he is constantly working his hands, trying to get an angle, trying to win with swipes, and showcases really good bend in there as well. Now, he's still pretty raw as a prospect. He's going to need to add on more pass rush moves. He is more of a power rusher at this point in time. He needs more development, needs to work on his pad level. But just go back and watch this guy. He's everywhere on tape. He's super fluid as an athlete. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him test. He's got good explosiveness. He can convert speed to power. I think his run defense is really solid. He brings you coverage upside, and he's only been playing edge rusher for 1 more year. He does need to work on some of the instincts, and obviously you're going to have to work on being more consistent with his hands. But if I had to bet on a guy that's going to get taken pretty high and develop into a really solid player, I love Oluwafemi Oladejo. I know Mel Kiper had him in the first round of one of his mock drafts. I don't know if he'll go that high. I push back on that narrative, but I definitely like him pretty close to where I have Swinson and Kennard. And the guy I have 1 spot ahead on my big board at number 58 overall is David Walker from Central Arkansas. This is my guy in the class. I know a lot of people are going to see this and be like, he's at Central Arkansas. I don't care. This guy put up unbelievable numbers for the past couple of seasons for Central Arkansas, and I don't think enough people are talking about him. 46 run stops, 21% pass rush win rate, 55 pressures, 12 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. He was unbelievable for the Bears this past season. He's so quick to the backfield. I mean, his athleticism is ridiculous. He closes so quickly, gets into the backfield, and just knows how to wreak havoc on opposing offensive linemen. He's a very powerful rusher that plays low to the ground, has a strong bull rush, phenomenal bend, excellent body control as a rusher. I mean, his bend is stupid good at times. Active hands, and he just constantly seemed to find his way into the backfield at all times. He just knows how to win in a variety of different ways, which is I absolutely love about him. His athletic numbers weren't my favorite in the world. He ran a 4.69. He has 77-inch wingspan, 31 3/4-inch arms. You saw that being an issue on tape. The length was going to be a concern. He overshot his gaps in the run game, and he's an FCS player. These guys are usually lower on people's boards. He is firmly a day 2 prospect for me, firmly. And I just don't see a world where he is not talked about in the top 100. He does so many different things well, had a really good Senior Bowl as well. I love what he brings to the table. Another guy, strong, had 26 reps on the bench, did a 7.15 on the 3-cone, really solid number there. There's a lot to like about him. 35-inch on the vertical. He's explosive. He's got an array of different ways to get into the backfield, and he's been so productive. I'm a huge fan of him. Again, the gap between Swinson, who started this tier, and David Walker is about 4 spots, and you can put any of those guys in any order. I favor Walker because I just love the power, love the speed, and love the athleticism. And I think he's going to be a really, really good NFL player. At number 9 is probably the take that is going to get a lot of you guys to click off the video. But I've got Jalen Walker at number 9. I don't see it. I really don't. As an edge rusher, he is one of the toughest prospects I've had to evaluate. I talked to Trevor Sikkema about this because we both seem to be kind of in alignment here. We didn't get to really see him test at the combine. Didn't do his pro day. 32-inch arms, 6'1", 243. He's small. He's a small player. He just is. That's a concern for me. I worry about what his overall upside is. Had a good season, 31 run stops, 7 sacks, 17.3% pass rush win rate. He's still, from everything you hear, he is a phenomenal leader in that locker room for Georgia. He just knows how to rally his guys, and you love that leadership that he brings. Walker is a really versatile player. He can play a little bit of everywhere along the defensive line, played outside, played over the tackle, and you love that. At the NFL level, at his size, he's just not going to be able to do that. He is athletic. He moves really well for the position. Quick first step, excellent bend to get into the backfield. I think his length actually is solid for his size. He has a little bit more power in his game than I was expecting. But when you talk about him as an edge rusher, which is where he's probably going to play, he's not good in coverage, for one thing. So he's not going to play linebacker. I just don't see that. He's not good enough in coverage to be an inside linebacker. But he's not a good enough edge rusher to warrant playing full-time on the edge. He struggles to disengage with blockers. A lot of his wins and ability to win and get into the backfield came as a designated pass rusher or as a blitzer. That's likely what he's going to have to be at the next level. They tried to play him inside. Like I said, his coverage was not good for Georgia. I'll just say that. And this is a guy that I have watched a lot of games just trying to figure out if I get it, and I just don't see it. I don't see the size translating super well to the NFL level. I don't see the lack of experience as an edge rusher being a good thing for him, because he's not a consistent enough winner when he's going to have to go one-on-one. He strictly wins with his speed. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves to win with at this point, and I worry about that. But I still think he can be a contributor. Teams are just going to have a plan when you draft Jalen Walker. Use him in that Devin White role or the early Hassan Reddick role. And I think you might have a good player here, but this screams like a guy that's going to get overdrafted. Their top 10 buzz with him, that would be an absolute disaster, in my opinion. And I just don't see it. So I've got Jalen Walker at number 9. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but I just don't see it with him as a prospect. At number 8, we've got one of my favorites, Princely Umanmielen. I just don't really get why nobody is talking about him as like a legitimate borderline first-round option. He's been productive, and not just Ole Miss this past season, but Florida the first 4 years of his college career. This is a guy with a 23.9% pass rush win rate, 11 sacks this past season, 56 pressures. He was phenomenal for Ole Miss. Great size at 6'4", 264 pounds. Incredible length as well, 34 and a quarter inch arms, 81 and 7/8 inch wingspan. You'll love to see that. Florida used him everywhere along the defensive line, played him inside, played him over tackle. He's versatile, and I love what he brings to the table. I think he's explosive off the line of scrimmage. Had a 1.62 10-yard split, 38-inch vertical, 10.6 on the broad jump. The explosiveness numbers are there, and he's a good run defender. I think he knows how to defend the run well. 27 run stops this past season. Showcased a solid spin move. I do think he gets too reliant on his athleticism and speed as a pass rusher, and it can hurt him on times. He just didn't have a lot of pass rush moves in his game. I don't think he's a out-of-this-world athlete. I think he's quick. I don't think he's very fast. He ran a 4.72 at the combine. Not awful. But really the concern with him are his hands as a pass rusher. Can he showcase the ability to consistently win one-on-one with his hands? Because if he can, he's going to be a steal wherever he's taken. I see him falling out of the second round. I think he's a borderline first-round talent in this draft class. I think he's a very, very good edge rusher that's being underappreciated in this draft class. I've got him at number 8. At number 7, we've got another one. The other Georgia edge rusher, Mykel Williams. Now, Mykel Williams coming into the year, you saw the upside. It was there. I'm not going to discredit this season a ton for him because he was hurt and there were some concerns there for him. But I do think he has a lot more areas to work on than people want to admit. I've seen experts in this industry, people that have done this for a long time, talk about Mykel Williams as a top 5 pick. No, there's nothing that Mykel Williams has shown on tape that should warrant a top 5 selection. I just don't think that that's even a possibility at this point. He dealt with injuries this past season, which, again, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for. He's an alien for his size. 6'5", 260, 10 and a quarter inch hands, 34 and 3/8 inch arms, 82 and 7/8 inch wingspan. I believe he ran around a 4.6, I want to say, in the 40. The numbers were unofficial. I don't have that pulled up right now, but the testing numbers were all really, really good for Mykel Williams at his pro day. But I do worry about, can he be a consistent pass rusher? He's got good athleticism. He's got a nice rip-through move. The size is phenomenal. He showed the ability to get skinny. Where he thrives as a run defender, he is a really, really good run defender that teams are going to draft him high. And this is why I like him a little bit better than, say, Jalen Walker, because he gives you an elevated floor at least as a run defender. And I think the ceiling with him is a lot higher. I think he's got the ceiling to be one of the top edge rushers in this class. But he struggled against more powerful rushers. The Alabama game in 2023 is a rough watch when you're watching Mykel Williams. Got stonewalled a lot. And I want to see him improve his pass rush toolbox. He's got the traits. It's there. The length is there. The athleticism. He just hasn't shown the ability to consistently win. I think he's going to be a good player, and he's probably going to be a first-round pick, as he should. I've got a first-round grade on Mykel Williams. But I do think the top 5 buzz with him, I just think is ridiculous. He's my number 33 overall prospect in the class. I still think he's going to be a good player. I love his fit to the Lions at 28. I think that's the spot where if Detroit gets him, I think it's 28 or 29, but I think that's a spot where I've got my eye on it, and he could be a dangerous piece for the Lions. I've got him at number 7. At number 6, we got Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. Really good player that I'm a big fan of his game. Played kind of out of position this past year for Texas A&M. I really want to discount kind of the season that he had. A 16.9% pass rush win rate, 4 sacks. He played at like 280 though for Texas A&M, and that's just not his game. He's not a guy that should be playing at that size. At the combine, he weighed in at 257, and everyone's like, okay, this is Scorton, and we're going to go back to what we saw on the Purdue tape, which was elite tape. He's a freak athlete. He could play coverage. He could drop back. He's got great versatility, played inside, outside, strong tackler who had an unbelievable spin move, great power as a rusher. The length is there for him, and it's like, okay, this is a guy that could be a top 5 pick. Didn't have the season you were hoping for Texas A&M, but I think the ceiling is there. I do want to see him improve at consistently knowing what pass rush moves to use, because I think he's got the moves. Can he be consistent in knowing which to use at what points in the game? Because I feel like it's inconsistent for him at this point in time. I also think he can be too reliant on his power and tries to win with his bull rush too much, and it limits what he can do otherwise. Lastly, the other area I'd like to see improvement on, I think he's overly aggressive at times, and he played off balance a little bit more than I would like to see. He's a really good player, though. He's going to be a top 25 pick, I think, and he's well deserving of it. I'm a big fan of Nick Scorton, and I've got him at number 6. At number 5, I've got Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College, a guy that I've been a big fan of since I turned on the tape. I remember the first night of the season, it was Florida State Boston College, and I listed all my Senior Bowl watch list guys on my board, and I'm watching this Florida State game, and I hadn't watched Ezeraku at this point. And I just keep hearing his name called. I think I watched the tape that night, and I was like, holy cow, like this guy has the potential to be special. And he just continues to just improve. He's 6'2", 248, which when you look at that, you're like, oh no, he's not very big. 34.5-inch arms, 82 and 3/8 inch wingspan. His size looks fine to me. Tested out really well at the combine. He didn't run, but did 22 on the bench, 35.5-inch on the vertical, 9'11 broad, 6'9'4 on the 3-cone, and a 4'19 on the 20-yard shuttle, both of which were the top numbers of the positions. He's phenomenal. I mean, what is there to say negatively about Donovan Ezeraku? He's got so many pass rush moves, just sets up offensive linemen, knows how to win. His up and under move is elite. He's got phenomenal bend, great size, great length, really good run defender as well. I mean, an 8.1% missed tackle rate, 42 run stops, 61 pressures, 14 sacks this past season for Boston College. I mean, the numbers are just eye-popping. He plays with inconsistent pads, which I would say is a negative for him. And he's not the quickest player in the world. You would expect him to be more athletic. He's not the most athletic edge rusher in the world. And to be honest, I don't really care. I'm not really worried about his athleticism because I think his skill set and his ability to win in so many different ways gives him a really high ceiling at the next level. I think he's going to be an awesome edge rusher, and I've got him at number 5. At number 4, I've got Shamar Stewart. I'm gonna push back a little bit, and by the end of this, I might end up having Ezeraku and maybe even Michael Williams ahead of Shamar Stewart when it's all said and done, because I do worry about Shamar Stewart. Now, the tape is very good with Shamar Stewart. I will say that. He's a better player than the numbers indicate, but he's not as good of a player as the media would indicate, if that makes sense, because he's a freak athlete. I think we don't need to go over this at this point. We all know 6'5", 281, ran a 4.59, nearly 85-inch wingspan, 40-inch vertical. I mean, the guy is an absolute freak for the position. I love that about him. He's got the versatility to play inside, can play outside. His athleticism is phenomenal. And I will say, he shows activity as a pass rusher. He is really good in terms of setting up offensive linemen. He's got good pass rush moves. He's got a power profile, can win with a bull rush. He's a hard hitter for the position, but the production will not say that. Had 15 run stops this past season with a 23% missed tackle rate. That's actually one of my biggest concerns with him because I think his numbers would look a lot better if he knew how to wrap up. Because this is a guy that had so many opportunities to bring down the quarterback, and he just could not finish the play. It's pretty alarming for me, and that's not like a lack of experience or anything. It showed up time and time again. Only a 12.4 pass rush win rate this past season. Balance concerns are there. Going back to him as a run defender, because I think the ceiling is there. He is very indecisive when it comes to the counter runs. On RPOs, he just does not know where to commit, and he's always a half second too late. He's going to have to get better at improving the instincts, but I like his hands. I love the athletic profile. I do worry about what his ceiling is going to be, and we have to see him be more productive. But if he's anything like Trayvon Walker's turned into a good NFL player. He has. If Shamar Stewart is that type of a player, which I think is his ceiling, or maybe that's his floor, you're getting a good edge rusher in the first round. He'll be a first-round pick, and he should, and I've got him at number 4. At number 3, man, this pains me to do because he was my number 1 guy coming into the year, my number 1 player coming into the year, and that's going to be James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Now, I want to preface this by saying James Pierce is still my number 13 prospect in the draft class. I still absolutely love James Pierce and think he's going to be a very good player in the NFL. And he got better this year. That's what's crazy about this is I think that James Pierce got better this season and still ended up dropping down the board. Because as a run defender, he really struggled in 2023. In 2024, his run defense was much better. 28 run stops. He was just more decisive as a run defender, knew how to close, knew how to make tackles, and I thought he had pretty good. He also showcased the ability to win with more power. That was a concern with him. He won with more power. He's a phenomenal athlete, ran the fastest 40 of any of the edge rushers, ran a 4.47. I love his traits. He does have shorter arms. He's probably going to play that Micah Parsons designated pass rush role, which is my comparison for him. Micah Parsons has been my comparison for James Pierce, and I'm sticking by it. And I think it's my comparison for my number 1 guy as well, which if you get 2 Micah Parsons in this draft class, you've got a special class. I'll say that much. I mean, there's so much to love about his game. He was just so dynamic as a pass rusher. 8 sacks, 22.7% pass rush win rate, 55 pressures, forced fumble on the season. He can do a little bit of everything for you. He just knows how to get into the backfield. I do worry, can he be an every down player? And can he add on a little bit more weight? Because he's 245 pounds. It's a little bit small to my liking, but I love him. I love his game. I love his traits. I think he's going to be a first-round pick. There's the off-the-field concerns with him, which to me are they're prospect fatigue, honestly, because I have heard nothing about that, and it seems like people now have concerns out of nowhere. I'm not worried about it. James Pierce is my number 3 edge rusher because I absolutely fell in love with Mike Green this season. I love this guy, man. He is absolutely incredible. And if he's on the board for my Colts at number 14, I pray to God that they take him because he is so special as a player. 6'3", 251 pounds. He wins with so many different pass rush moves. Swim move, spin move, the up and unders, the ability to split tackles. He is so quick to get into the backfield and just close on the football. He is elite at that. On top of that, great run defender. His run defense this season, really impressive. 49 run stops. Excellent player there. He is just so dynamic as a pass rusher, though. He showcased the ability to play with his hand in the dirt, play standing up, win in a variety of different ways. I mean, there's so much to like about him, and his numbers will reflect that. A 21.3% pass rush win rate, 17 sacks, 65 pressures. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. Well, he's playing for Marshall. He's not playing against anybody. This guy was playing really good football against Ohio State, who, I didn't know if you know this, they won the national championship this year. Mike Green is a very good player that is going to be a first-round pick. Another player that has off-the-field concerns, which those I think are a little bit more valid than the James Pierce one. There was some off-the-field issues at his departure with Virginia that are worth noting, but I still believe he's going to be an elite player at the NFL level, wherever he gets taken. And I've got him as my number 2 edge rusher because it should go without saying the number 1 guy in this class at the edge rusher position is Abdul Carter. I don't think I can say anything that just hasn't already been said. His explosiveness, speed, and twitch is some of the best I have ever seen from any player I have ever studied. He is remarkable as a pass rusher. Now, when I did my Abdul Carter video, admittedly, it was like 4 games into his year where he struggled to start the season. He did not look great. He looked like he really had some areas that he needed to improve upon. And after I uploaded that video, he just looked incredible. I think his ability to win with speed and get around offensive linemen, trigger downhill, is phenomenal. He is so quick into the backfield. Go back and watch that Notre Dame game where he was out of his mind. He can win with so many different swipes and spins, and he's just smart at knowing how to use his body to get into the backfield. I mean, his numbers were ridiculous. 22.6 pass rush win rate, 66 pressures, 13 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. I mean, he is Micah Parsons. Everything about him, the athleticism, the ability to move, the school. I know we don't scout the helmet, but there's so much to love about Abdul Carter and his game, and that's why he's going to be a top 4 pick in this draft class. He is such a rare athlete that the production matches the athleticism, and I just don't see there being an argument for anyone but Abdul Carter being the top edge rusher in this class. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Who do you think is the top edge rusher in the class? Who do you think should be the first one off the board? Would love to hear from you guys. Leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.